Hey everybody, it's Book of Katherine, and we are on the Underground Railroad on one of our freedom walks to talk about Donald Trump and Donald Trump donations, the small donations that families are making with their hard-earned money, and what they think is going to Donald Trump's campaign, but is in fact going to Nevertrumpers. And I know that you don't know that, and I'm here to help you figure out what happened and why, and to help you put your money where you actually want it to go. So, Donald Trump just had a press Q&A with his Joint Chiefs of Staff. And if you watched it on October 7th, you will notice that he said, Mark Espers just said that this was the first time that we've had almost all Trump appointees. That means that Mark Espers, his head of the military, Department of Defense, started off the Joint Chiefs of Staff meeting by saying, hey, this is the first time we've almost had all your appointees here. What a great way to say, hey, we're 3 years in and we still don't have all appointees for you. You're the first president. You're the first president. The first president that's ever made it 3 years in, and you still don't have all your appointees, which normally happens within the first month of being in office. Within 1 month of office, both the DNC and the GOP get together and they confirm all of your people and hand you the staff that you asked for, because you are a duly elected president by we the people of the United States of America. Now, you could go ahead and say, hey, but the Democrats are getting in the way. I'm sorry, but it's the GOP who have had the Senate. They are in charge of actually confirming these people. And it only takes a 51-person majority, which they have had this entire time, as you saw by the confirmation of Kavanaugh. So it is the GOP chairwoman, who is constantly saying, congratulations, we have raised record numbers. For example, Donald Trump in that meeting said that in a 24-hour period, the GOP made a record-breaking $13 million in 24 hours. He said the GOP made a record $13 million in 24 hours. Not Trump, the GOP. And he said they made it how? They made it from small donations from families. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't think a lot of small families are trying to give away donations to Nevertrump GOP people who are trying to block confirmations for President Trump's staff. I don't think they're happy that President Trump is sitting in front of his Joint Chiefs of Staff and they aren't all Trump appointees yet. He doesn't have a head of military yet. He's not commander-in-chief yet of his entire forces. No, he hasn't been able to put in his people. He still has Obama's people in his office. And why is that? Let me tell you why that is. That's because the GOP, who has had an even larger majority, 56 people? The day of the election in 2018, the numbers varied from paper to paper. They had all sorts of results around until they could finally decide for you what result they were actually going to decide upon. Because if you watch the State of the Union in 2019, you'll notice that there's a much smaller DNC section than there is GOP section. They've gone across the aisle, way across the aisle. Both sides of the aisle are shaking Donald Trump's hands and screaming, USA, USA, USA. Isn't that interesting? Have you ever heard of a time in U.S. election history where someone has gone to a ballot and voted one party for the House and one party for the GOP? Have you ever heard that in entire U.S. history? No, you haven't. Nope. But anyway, moving on to the GOP in the Senate, we get a larger majority because we fought really hard. Me and my people fought very hard in the GOP to go ahead and clean the GOP and get a larger majority for the Senate, actually just get in people and take out anyone who is blocking free speech. We didn't want any people who are against free speech in there. Anyone who is against the Constitution, we were like, clean it out, right? So we go in there and we do that. We get a greater majority in there. We get a lot of our people in there. And gosh darn, what happens? He nominates a general in December 2nd, 7th, last year of 2018. And when does this Senate, who has a larger majority and even changed the rules in January of this year to make this process faster and speedier, when did they confirm this general? 8 months later, the end of July 27th, 25th. That's when the GOP did it. I think they were too busy being on vacation. Why were they on vacation? Because the GOP Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, sets the GOP schedule. In fact, he sets the entire congressional schedule. He has put them on vacation for a total of 4 months this year. That means each member of Congress makes nearly $200,000 of our tax money, and they go on vacation for more months than a teacher. I don't know what they're doing. We know what some of the things they're doing are. Chuck Grassley tells us he goes down to the Amazon and he reports on how Ford crops are doing, how they're mowing down the Amazon. He reports on Ford crops. Well, isn't that interesting that he's reporting on Ford crops, since Ford funds the DNC and Ford funds libertarians? Ford does not fund the GOP. Then why is Chuck Grassley down in the Amazonian and reporting on Ford crop and rubber trees? Isn't that interesting? And then he comes back and starts infrastructure processes that slow down all of our ag. Isn't that fascinating? And their ag down in the Amazonian switches from 15 million tons a year to 60 million tons in the span of 10 years. That is absolutely fascinating how they do that after so many visits from Chuck Grassley, and yet America, after all the bills he passes, slows down and gets hollowed out. But that's not just Chuck Grassley. Let's talk about Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, who did pro-abortion rights and all these things the DNC fights for now. He did all of that as a lawyer. That's who he fought for until Reagan came along. And then he just said, I think I'll be DNC. And then while he was DNC and Clinton came along, he went ahead and drew up a bill. He drew up a bill that said, hey, why don't we take out the human rights trading agreement in China, just this little itty bitty bill. And what that did is, we in America have this thing about human rights. We have labor laws about how long you can keep a human in a factory. We have labor laws about what you can do to a human in a factory. We have all these laws that make it kind of expensive to have workers in a factory. We have workman comp laws. We have all these things. And in our trade agreement with China, we said you can't violate those laws. So if you put factories in China, your factories in China and all the businesses in China have to have the same rules and restrictions. Not all the exact same ones, but you have to at least not do horrible things to these people in order to profit off of them. And Mitch McConnell and Dianne Feinstein and a whole bunch of others, senators from both sides of the aisle, got together and drew up just one itty bitty 1-page long contract and signed it and passed it. And what did that do? It made all the human rights restrictions go away so that all the factories in China could be turned into prison labor camps. And now all their prisons, they suddenly created what's called forced labor camps. You can look it up, 1999, the fall and gone. All of a sudden, prison labor camps were created 1999 to 2001 when they were hammering out the WTO deal. And that was what Mitch McConnell did, signed right on it. Pat Roberts, they were all on it. These GOP people that you think are on Trump's side, raising money for, giving your money for. And guess what that did? All of a sudden, American companies had to compete with super cheap labor when they could go ahead and pay a guy $1 a day. Isn't that funny? Because that's what the Nazis paid Hitler for their concentration camp victims to work in their factories. And isn't that interesting? The same companies got that great bargain. And so those companies just moved on out of America and were like, screw that. And all of our manufacturing disappeared because of the GOP. Not just the DNC, not just Clinton. Clinton could have done it because, hey, the House and the Senate were GOP, right? And so they signed it together and hollowed out America and made Amazon a huge selling partner because Amazon had all of its products made in China. Guess who else did? eBay. That's Peter Thiel. And what does Peter Thiel run right now? Peter Thiel runs Brad Pascal's site. That's the site you keep donating money to under the name of Trump, and I'd like to know why you keep on hammering out money to a site that just says Trump, Trump, Trump. Every time you go to it, all it does is ask for money. They even ask for $45 for a pumpkin hat. And if that doesn't look like a scam to you, I'm sorry, but you're not paying attention to what Trump is doing. Trump is running a country. He is so freaking busy. All he's doing is running a country. Have you looked at his schedule? Look up his schedule from morning, noon, and night, all he's doing. And so I go on there onto his Twitter feed and I start saying, can you please guarantee me that none of this money that everyone's donating to you is actually going to the GOP? Can you please guarantee me that none of this is going to the GOP? Because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the DNC has always made 20-1 the fundraising that the GOP has. Always. They've made 20-1 with Soros funding and Ford funding and Carnegie funding. It's always been 20-1. The GOP has never, ever outfunded. Nancy Pelosi has always been number one in fundraising on Capitol Hill. That's why she's been the number one Like, she goes to San Francisco and she goes to Miami, and she's just the top cat. That's why she has so much power. She can't finish a sentence. She can't pronounce anything. She can't actually enunciate, but she's number one on the Hill. She can't put together anything. She can't fight for herself. She can barely garble out a sentence, but man, she can fundraise, and so she's number one on Capitol Hill. But all of a sudden, Lindsey Graham is breaking records right about the time that they're sending out impeachment notifications to you guys on your phone, because I went ahead and subscribed. I subscribed. Yes, I have fallen in love with the American flag again. I was raised military, and then they brainwashed me out of it, and I have fallen in love with it again, and I'm very proud of that. I am very, very proud of that, and I'm very, very proud of where I bought this pin and how I shop now, because I don't support Germany, and I don't support China, and my buying habits actually reflect my ethics and my human rights record, and it took a long time to get there, which is why I know how much it matters to you where your money goes. I know that you don't want to support Nevertrumpers. Let me read out some other non-Trump things that they're doing. Let's see here. So, why don't you check out how the liberal media actually photographs these guys? Why don't you check out how they photograph Trump? They never have him in focus. They always have him fuzzy. They always have him looking orange. And they always have him looking down from above. They go ahead and they have pictures of him like this. They picture him from above. All the GOP people they love, they have pictures like this. They're like this. Lindsey Graham looks like this. The powerful men. The powerful men. Lindsey Graham, right? And Mitch McConnell. Rock stars, right? Carthy of Dakota, right? So we've got, Kramer of Dakota, Kevin McCarthy. He is their rock star and hero because he's supposed to be GOP leader. He is supposed to be leader of the House. And he went ahead and said, let's give it to Nancy Pelosi and fool the American public. So even though they have the majority, even though he walked into the State of the Union right behind Trump and everyone shook his hand and stood up for them and gave them a huge round of applause, nope, you can go ahead and appoint whoever you want to be the Speaker of the House. And so they went ahead and put her up even though they don't have the majority. All these women sitting there, the women's majority, they were in white and they had like 12 seats over there. That's why they focus so much on 4 people, because that's all they've got. That's all the new people they've got. But all these GOP people in there screaming, USA, USA, where are they? Do you ever hear about them? No, you don't. Okay, let's talk about some other things they do. So, why don't we talk about the first 2 years in office? Let me switch this around. Did we all forget the first 2 years in office, these guys? Like, let's talk about how many things they passed. They passed one bill, the tax bill, so that your money could go up and they could all get in 2018. Right? That's it. Just one bill. One bill. One bill. That's it. And then the Fed went ahead and smacked it. They knew the Fed would turn around and smack it so that the economy could only grow so much. Only grow so much. So they knew they had a backstop. The Fed's on their side. So they only had a backstop. That's it. The only bill they passed. Trump handed down every executive order that's making this nation great again. Every executive order that you see coming down the pipe. Every single thing that GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel hands out, every single senator that tweets out and says, look at what we've done for you. Look at what Trump's doing for you. It's all done by executive order. Not one thing is done by one of those senators. Not one of those things is done by the House GOP. None of it. If you find an actual Trump bill, you will find maybe 7 names on it. Maybe 7 names that put up. And that's it. He keeps taking each one of those executive orders and he keeps handing it down to Congress. And you know what those executive orders would do? It would take all of this stuff that he finally did for the American public, all this glorious booming that you see, and it would actually make it into law. Because what's law right now is Obama. The 3 times huge federal government of Obama. That's what's law right now. The huge EPA, right? The 12 extra chairs that are running all the way down into your state government. All of Agenda 21, all of that's still holding, and the GOP is keeping it there. They could dismantle it in a heartbeat, but they don't. Instead, they go Trump, Trump, Trump. They put up every single thing his executive order does, and they put it in front of you, and then they say, go ahead, fundraise for Trump, campaign Trump, campaign Trump. And then GOP chairwoman says, hey, we hit a new fundraising record. And Peter Thiel's like, yay for us. Yay for us. We hit a new fundraising record. And they go ahead and they say, this is our cut. Right? And Trump doesn't need your money. He's a billionaire. He doesn't need it. He can't take half of it because they're going to go ahead and sue him for it. He's losing billions of dollars, but he can't take any of the campaign money and actually use it on any kind of like lawsuit or anything like that because there are laws against that. So no, Like, what are you doing donating your money? I wouldn't donate a single thing. I wouldn't buy a Trump hat if I were you. Go ahead and iron it onto a hat if you really want to have a Trump hat. Those things cost $5. Go to New York City and see how much a hat costs you. You don't need to be paying $25 for a Trump hat. And you know Donald Trump would never actually do that. He has no idea what's going on that site. Does it sound anything like him? It's, you just go onto it and it's like, oh, $100. And you know what's very interesting about that Trump site? Isn't it interesting that the rallies link is broken? I find that very interesting, that everything works on that site that says pay us money, but the rallies link is broken. So you can't figure out where to go, plan ahead, get there in time, and actually meet each other so that you can organize and meet candidates that can run against the GOP. Let me tell you how the GOP works. Do you want to know why giving the GOP money is a bad idea? Let me tell you what happened in 2018, because I was there for that one. I wasn't there for 2016. I'm sorry, I was really sick and I was in bed and I couldn't move my legs, but I've done a lot of work and I can do that now. And so what I did in 2018 was I did Clean the GOP. It's called Clean the GOP. And now we're going to do Clean the DNC. We're going to do both sides for this coming year. And they're scared about it and they're getting ready for it, which is why they're raising all these funds, right? So what did we do? We went ahead and we hit the primaries, because in the primaries have a very low turnout. They always say, oh, the election's going to be on November 6th. Like, we have a big election coming up this fall. We have 3 huge elections coming up this fall, right? And the primaries have already happened. They run primaries in May. It's ridiculous how early they run primaries. And the reason they do that is because they think you won't know about it. They think you're not paying attention. They don't run any headlines about it at all. And they run all these little primaries on all these little dates. It's ridiculous. If it was fair, everything would be on one election date. All the elections would be on one election date. But everything, that should tell you how corrupt the GOP is, the fact that they, in all these GOP states, by the way, when Obama was in office, you do know more than 1,000 seats went over to the GOP, right? So why is your state still being consolidated and handing over to the globalists? Why are your internet companies still being bought out and consolidated and then your service goes bad? Haven't you asked yourself that? Why you're a GOP state and that's still happening? Why all the things that happened when you had a DNC governor are still happening when you have a GOP governor? You know, maybe the law is a little less corrupt and that's it, just to keep the peace. You know, maybe you're not a sanctuary state, but you don't know what's going on. You have no... I'm amazed at the headlines they put out. I'm amazed at the headlines they put out. Like, that they think, like, I've heard freedom fighters in one state say that, oh, we don't have an opioid problem. And then I've heard the other people on the other end of the state say, oh, we have the worst opioid problem there is. And it depends on the headlines you read. And it's like, it's just like, they just use the headlines to twist whatever demographic they want in whatever way they want. And I'm like, you need to actually go and look. If you're interested in opioid crisis, you need to go to the hospitals and ask. Like, you need to find out. You know what I mean? Or look up a great place if you want to look up opioid stats for your state. You know, you look up the CDC and find out what's actually going on in your state. Because I can tell you right now, GOP or DNC, they're not actually telling you the truth. They're not being straight up with you. They're not being honest. So what they did was we put up all these candidates. We went and found these candidates in all these states that were going to run in the primaries. Because what happens in the primaries, everybody goes out for the big date. Everybody goes out for November 6th. Everyone goes out for November 7th or whatever date it is. Everybody, the big numbers turn out for that date. No one turns up for the primaries. It's like 5,000 people, 3,000 people that turn up for the primaries. Hardly anyone turns up for the primaries. And so I was like, look, all we have to do is rush that. All we have to do is rush that and we can turn the tide. If we all just show up and we do the primaries and we vote the other way and we vote the guy out. Because in the primary is where they have to win the primary in order to even get into the final race. And all the headlines will say, oh, for example, the Lindsey Graham race. They're all saying Lindsey Graham's election is on November 6th in 2020. No, he hasn't even won the primaries yet. You can't say it's Lindsey Graham's race. You can't say it's Mitch McConnell's race in November 6th, 2020. They say, oh, this is who he's running against in the DNC. No, he hasn't. Neither of them has actually won the nomination yet. They can't say that for either one. So they're lying when they say that. They're lying when they say that to get it in your head that they are the nominees. And that's where this money is going, is to buy those headlines. Because if you know anything about AstroTurf, if you read Cheryl Atkins's book, The Smear, you need to do all that and learn about AstroTurf and learn about transactional journalism. That's what all your campaign donations are going towards, is to purchase headlines for these guys. And so they get on these headlines, and these globalists get to have their guy in. And so what you need to do is, so what we did is we went into all these races, and we supported the guy that was just the normal guy. We looked for the guy that was supporting free speech and the Constitution. And I was like, screw Trump. Like, it has nothing to do with Trump, because it really doesn't have to do with Trump. And it was candidates. Some of them were libertarian candidates. Some were like Democrats who had turned Republican. Some of them were already Republican. Some of them were just businessmen getting into the race for the first time. And we were really strict about what we were looking for, right? So we were like, look, this is what we're looking for. This is what we want. And then we all pretty much agreed, like in every state, like it was pretty obvious people could agree when they started actually looking at the candidates. And I was like, you have to look for someone that's normal. Well, what happened is that it turned out that the GOP was already going after all of their opponents. They were using their campaigns. What the GOP does, I mean, they talk about how corrupt the DNC is, but this is the GOP for you. The GOP actually, they do a thing what's called, you know how President Trump will say, I back this candidate, like I endorse this candidate, right? The GOP itself, if they have 5 guys running on a primary ticket, the GOP, the party itself, will endorse a candidate. Like, I kid you not, the GOP itself will actually endorse the GOP party. The GOP party will endorse a candidate. They will pick a candidate from the primary list. And then that means when they endorse it, that means all the campaign funds now go to that candidate. So like they've already endorsed Lindsey Graham. They've already endorsed Mitch McConnell. It doesn't matter that Mitch McConnell hollowed out America. It doesn't matter that Mitch McConnell didn't back any of the wall, like completely sunk every single wall deal. It didn't matter that Mitch McConnell sunk every single thing for Obamacare. It didn't matter that McConnell has, like, it doesn't matter it doesn't matter the fact that any of them are never Trumpers and that all of them have completely sunk his entire agenda, right? It doesn't matter about any of that. They're like, oh, no, we'll take all the Trump campaign donations and we're going to endorse them. And that's going to be our endorsement. And so all around town, they get to put all their posters up. And the other 4 guys, even though they're running GOP, they don't get any funds whatsoever. Like, they're screwed. They're totally out. They get no money whatsoever. Like, they're absolutely done for. And it's like, well, they're the ones who are actually running for Trump. They're the brave people running for Trump. And then they take those campaign donations and then they go sue these guys. And you will find it in 2018. You will find a ton of lawsuits where they went, the GOP did this. They used DNC tactics and they went in and they sued these guys. And they said, oh, your signatures on your thing aren't real. You have to prove they're real. Well, the guy didn't have a lawyer to go back in court and say, no, this is actually real signatures. I went around and got my name on the ballot through signatures. And the GOP just strong-armed them with money, just like copyright law. Everyone does Fair Use Act on YouTube, and we're right by the law when we use Fair Use Act and things like that. When we change like a song or when we change like a piece of art, we're totally in the right. But any company can come along and say, hey, don't do that, and use the copyright and take all your money for it because you don't have the money to fight back. You don't have any kind of strength. You don't have $20,000 to take a lawyer to court to get $500 back. And so you're screwed, right? So that's what happens, and so the GOP went through, and then when the big races came, when it finally came to the big races, the GOP went. I couldn't believe I found an article, and the GOP went, and they said, we're only going to back, when it came to 2018, they said, we're going to back these 5 guys. That was it from all the states, because we got so many primary people in, because we still got it, because Clean the GOP still did such a good job in 2018. We still did such a good job. Do you know what the GOP said to Donald Trump? They went to Donald Trump, and these guys were from all over the map, you guys. No, they weren't. They didn't go and run on Trump at all. Like, to me, that's kind of a warning bell. I'm like, you have to have something else. You have to have some kind of, like, you know, a lot of these guys had their personal phone numbers up and were like, just call me and talk to me. I was like, talk to these people in person and check them out and make sure you can stay in contact with them when you get to DC. Like, you know your senator and know your representative and things like that. So many of our people got in that the GOP went to Trump and said, this was in a newspaper article, I found it, or an online article, whatever. And they actually said, like, the GOP just left it out and they made it really small. I couldn't believe I found it. They said, we're only going to back 5 candidates in the 2018 race. They're like, that's it. That's all we're backing. 5 candidates. And of course, it was Kevin Kramer from South Dakota. And then it was like some guy from the South, some guy from New Jersey, Some guy is all sustainable development people from the United Nations. All 5 of them. Which means we're not going to split the pot. All the money we've made off of your name, we're not going to give it to all the candidates. They all have to run against the Democrats alone. Which means we'd rather have a Democrat in office than one of these Trumpers of yours. That's where your money's going. I hope you get that. That's where your money's going when you donate to Trump, when you go to Trump rallies and you give your money over. Give your money to a candidate that you like. Give it directly to a candidate in your town. Trump's a billionaire. He's going to be fine. Leave him alone. Stop giving it to Peter Thiel and billionaires and GOP Ronna Chairwoman Daniel that shows up on Fox News and these sustainable development people that give it to Lindsey Graham who are blocking all of your votes and blocking freedom in the Constitution and killing it. You have so much work to do. There's so much work to do all over America. Your local government needs it. And I mean, maybe you're like, oh, well, there's nobody out there. There's nobody. Look, we're on the other side. Yay, I made it to the other side. Yay, and we're even walking along it. Maybe we'll see the really beautiful rock formations that are here. So there's really some gorgeous rocks right down here that I personally love. Maybe you won't, but I love them. So, but seriously, like, I don't know, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. You see, I'm like Nancy Pelosi, but I personally think she's worse. I get out more words, and I actually have some kind of disorder or something like that. So I'm like, yikes. Ugh. All right, here we go. Look at that. Can you see that? Are you able to see how gorgeous that is? Like, are you able to? Kind of looks like that Lord of the Ringies look. Lord of the Rings kind of gorgeousness. You see that rock? Oh, I think that's wood in there. I don't know. It's showing up. The rock in there. Well, there's a big one coming up here. Here we go. Look at this big guy. Do you see him? Oh gosh, he looks small on the camera. He's way bigger than me. Like he's like that on me. He's like, "Roar." There. That shows it better. He towers above me. So, dude, you got to get some height. Lift. Woof. Lift. I got to learn how to shoot camera angles. Let's see here. I don't want to go off the trail too much. I'm going to get in trouble. This is where things get wild. You don't want to be careful in the wild. And then the neighbor just taught me all about the spiders in this area, and I walked into a spider web just as I was coming through. That's gorgeous. See that? Isn't that beautiful? Can you see that in there? Am I getting in the way? Am I? It's just beautiful. Beautiful rock. Really different. And then it's over here too. Like it does this, the rock is different because it kind of does this layering thing. I don't know if you can see that, but like it does this, can you see that in there? It does this like layering thing. So it's like layers of green. So it's kind of got layers. Like I had to toss all my science that I learned in science class. I should probably go back. Look at this gorgeous trail though. I don't know if it's showing. I know you can't see the gold, but it's gorgeous. I'm so glad I'm walking again. Isn't this great, guys, that I'm walking again? I am walking in like a dance shirt. Haha. Oh well, I was just kind of like, it's the day for it. Today's the day. Gotta do it. So whoops, I don't want to walk over you, sweetie. Such a gorgeous flower. Let's see here. Let's see, is this going to pick up the gold? You going to pick up the gold for me today? There you go. Hi. Aren't you beautiful? Yeah. Show that off. Show that off. Wow. Aren't you beautiful? All right. All right, I think the sky's getting darker. I better go back. I think now I know that could be rain. All right, I don't know what I was saying about the GOP. They're still never Trumpers is my point. And we put in a lot of good people. Like we put in a lot of really good people. And here's the other thing that I want to say. Trump has to go up there on stage, and like we had put in some good people as primary. Oh, they tricked some people. That was the other thing, is that they tricked some people. Like there's one guy in South Dakota, that's why I really hate, or North Dakota, that's why I really hate Kramer, is because what they did in North Dakota was this. There is a way to have a process in order to be nominated. There's this whole process that you have to do in order to be nominated as a candidate in a primary. Now, only the like inner GOP, like the high up politicians actually know the whole process. Now, the reporters aren't going to tell you because they don't want you in. They want their sustainable development guys in. And the GOP doesn't want you in. They want their sustainable development guys in. But they've had the rules written in the books for a long time just so their Princeton, Yale, buddy old boys can get in. So there's this whole rule book about how you have to show up on time. And in order to get on the ballot, you have to walk up on stage when your name is called. And you have to just know to do that or something like that. And so... or you have to walk in, and they weren't clear about you have to walk up on stage to have your name called. And they kind of were fudgy about that with him. And a reporter, I actually found this reporter who wrote about it, this really small, that's the thing, is local reporters. After the election, there were all these, do you remember this? After the election, there were all these journalists out there saying, we have to go, in order for this not to happen again, we have to take over the local news. Like the small local news stations, we really need to push and take over the local news stations. Like there really needs to be a push. The really big problem with this is that local news stations were way out in force. They have way too much power, and the people out there aren't hearing the real news, which means they weren't hearing the programming. They were saying middle America isn't getting the programming. And so they were saying basically the local stations, and that's the things, like when Dr. Phil did that story on the phone scam that happens, where they'll call and you think that it's your daughter calling. Like I was telling my husband, he could get a phone call and it'll look like I'm calling him. It'll look like me on his phone. And all of a sudden he'll hear a stranger's voice. And they'll be saying, I have a gun to your wife's head. And here my face is staring at him on the phone. And so what he'll say is like, he'll say my name. He'll be like, Katherine. Like that's the first thing he'll say. Well, they won't actually know my name. And now they have my name. And they'll add my name to my profile because my phone profile doesn't have, they have my social media. Anyways, there's this whole scammer thing. And I don't know how I got on that either. So anyway, the point is, I'm sorry, I'm getting tired. For those of you who don't know me, I do have health issues. And so I walk in order to get better. And this is my physical therapy for the day. So if you could just bear with me, I'd really love it. I'm trying to develop my legs. I got to find out how skinny my legs, like how little muscle I had the other day. And I was like wailing, and my friends were like, you have no idea how much more muscle that was than you had. Like, what are you crying about? Like, you have muscle. Do you know what they were? But I've lost weight, so to me, my legs are skinnier. And they're like, you've got to be kidding. And they're like, you got so much muscle than you had. And I'm like, I've got nothing. It's just bone. And they're like, no, it's like, there's little things and bone. You didn't have any little things before. And I was like, they were like, you were just bone. I was like, oh. So I'm trying to be happy about it. So I'm getting there. I'm walking. It's amazing how far you can get and still like not be grateful sometimes and still be so frustrated. But I guess that's what makes you win at the same time. I'm realizing that's what makes an athlete, is your drive, is your push. Maybe that's part of the reason I'm doing better, is because I do have that drive and that push, because I'm like, I want to get better. I want to get better. If I didn't have that drive and that desire to get better, I probably wouldn't be where I am. You know what I mean? Like sometimes one of my trainers, she's like, you're just going to have to tell your body to do it. And I was like, are you joking? Like, do you not understand who I am? Like, have you not seen like what I'll do? I'm just like, do you not know me yet? Like, it's just funny. Anyway, I'm like, you really need to watch Despacito again. Like, you really need to watch that again. So we found out how bad I really was that day. I was really bad. And I was like, if you don't know how far I'm willing to go to get better, if you don't know me by now. Anyway, I must be really tired to be singing in the middle of the woods. Anyhow, so the GOP just really did some nasty tactics to this guy. I really didn't like it. His name was Thomas O'Neill. And basically, they kind of told him, they had a reporter, they kind of told him, just wait here like, wait until your name's called. They weren't really clear with him, so he waited there. So he was there with the stage right there. And so the other guy, Kevin Kramer, went up, or whatever his first name is, but Kramer went up on stage. And so the other guy was just waiting for his name to be called to be on for the nomination. They all knew he had run, he had done a story in the paper. They all knew, but the GOP just let him stand there. And they're like, oh, nobody else? All right, you're the nominee, which made him the only guy on the ballot. And even the reporter, the local reporter, was shocked. So what I was saying before was that the Dr. Phil story about these scammers when they call you on the cell phone, the only people who covered that story that the FBI did back in the 2017, after Trump got into office, once his nominee got into office, a month later, this 20-year scam that had been going on called virtual kidnapping. It's like IRS scamming, but way worse. Virtual kidnapping had been going on in America for 20 years. And it took a Trump appointee, Christopher Wray, being in office for 1 month for them to finally do a story on it. But who covered it? Only the local news. That's why local news is so important. And this local news reporter covered how Thomas O'Neill was left standing there right next to the stage, and the GOP just was like, heh, heh, heh. And they were like, he has to jump up on stage. It was like the secret thing they knew. He has to jump up on stage without us inviting him. And they had told him, well, you just get on stage when it's time. You know, when it's time to call your name. And they just made it like that. And the reporter was shocked that the GOP did that. The reporter couldn't believe it because she thought, as British is going through it, they were just like, that's the end of democracy. She was like, this is the end of democracy. If someone wants to run for office and they're tricked out of running for office, it was a big, big, big deal. And now they have this little thing that says like, oh, on Ballotpedia, it says that he lost like 35%. I was like, no, he didn't even get on the ballot. How can you say that he even lost? Like, he didn't even get on the ballot. Was that to cover it up because I wrote about it? I have no idea what all that's about. But it was awful. But I guess and this guy, Kramer, is backed by Exxon Mobil. And then in Maine, they sued off the guy that had gathered signatures to get his name on the ballot. He had 10,000 signatures or something, or whatever number of signatures you needed. And they went and sued him off. And all over America, they went off and they picked all these really excited Trump people who wanted to get on the ballot for 2018 when they saw that Trump won and they wanted to support his administration. And I had figured it out somewhere in the middle of like June, May, end of May 2018. I had really noticed the press was just being really, really weird. I talk about it in it's the original Killing the GOP video. I'll try and link it below if I have time, if I'm doing well enough. But basically, I talk about it I finally figured it out. The press was just being really weird that year and really trying to seem to distract from something. Like, I'm in PR. I've worked in PR for a really, really long time. And I can tell, I know I did a lot of work at PR when I was at school. And I know it. And so I was like, they're really trying to distract from something. And I finally figured out that they were doing primaries and they didn't want any Trump people to get in and replace it, because that's the reason Trump got in, is because no one trusted politicians anymore, which means Trumps could have a party. And Trump parties were trying to rise up just like the Tea Party. And that's when all of the wipes started happening. All the conservatives wipes started happening when Facebook started shutting down pages. And GOP chairwoman Ronna McDonough, whatever she actually said on Fox News, she said a candidate tried to put up their page to run for office and it was down in less than a second. The Facebook had actually wiped their candidacy page in less than a second. She said it was down. And I was like, there it is. There it is. That's what all of these wipes were about. We're making sure that the GOP was not replaced. And that's when we started doing Clean the GOP. And I'm telling you right now they're having you use Trump funds and Trump campaign to make sure that they still stay in office. Because as long as they stay in office, this huge Obama government will stay long after Trump is gone, and none of it will be destroyed. And the UN, United Nations government, is just supporting German industries. Let me give you an example. Lindsey Graham for 25 years. Lindsey Graham has had BMW factories in South Carolina. He's been bringing in BMW factories. In fact, everything, sugar crops, Corn, high fructose corn syrup. Those are Bayer crops owned by Germany. BMW is owned by Germany. Notice that Volkswagen, owned by Germany. Volkswagen's the one that didn't do the climate change restrictions. They're the ones that went around it because Germany doesn't have any climate change restrictions. They're the one nation in the world, one of the few nations that doesn't have any climate change restrictions. So in a number of their sectors, known as the hidden champions, they're only 0.6% of the population of the world in production, but they own 48% of the global market share in sales. And that's Germany for you, helped out by people like Lindsey Graham and universities like University of Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln, Nebraska, which also starting 25 years ago when Agenda 21 was signed, started doing corn research for Bayer crops. Monsanto, whoever you want to ask, they just all started consolidating once it came to Obama. And Obama's Justice Department just said yes to every monopoly, just approved them all. And of course, Chuck Grassley was like, oh, no, like, oh, I'll do these hearings to say I'm against it. But if you look into his blog and see what he's doing, he was setting it up for the first 20 years. Like he's actually setting up all of these conglomerations to come together. And I'm like, he's the father of it all. And I can't believe anyone trusts a politician for 30 years. I'm like, everyone talks about actually having limits. They actually have studies that show from the Overlords by John Stossel, who is also a libertarian, which is also funded by the exact same people who fund the DNC. So not all of his facts are correct. He leaves out the absolute worst thing, like he did sustainable development, but he actually left out, he did this whole thing. It's really taxes that are killing this country. He didn't say it's actually sustainable development that wrote all the taxes. He actually kind of left that part out and said it's just about gender. And I'm like, oh, really? It's 17 areas of law and you covered 2. I was like, yeah, no, all the problems in the country are this stuff. That's also sustainable development. And you know that, and you left that out. So he's very convenient. But the facts that you do get that end up being correct when you check them out are really, really helpful. Like the Overlords saying things like, hey, you know, when it comes to Congress, if you've been in Congress a really, really long time, the longer you're in office, the more willing you are to spend taxpayer money. So if you go in there, you're not so willing because you used to be a layperson yourself. And so, hey, you're not so willing to sign a bill that sends away people's money. But the longer you're in office, the more money you're willing to spend. Well, you know what? Chuck Grassley's second longest senator that's been in Congress. He's been in there since the 70s. I don't know how Nancy Pelosi's been in there, but all of them, Senator Feinstein, all of them have been in there for a really long time. And it takes a lot of voters to overdo the fraud that's in there. There's a lot of voting fraud. And that's how many people came out and voted for Trump. From all the voting fraud that I've seen, I would say it's about a 60% rate that they had stuffing the ballot boxes for Hillary. That was about 60% at the rate of all the things in all the boxes that they were bringing in, and everything from the South Florida county and everything like that, bringing it in 3 days early and stuffing. It looked like a 60% padding of the vote, and he still won. That's why it was such a close vote. It takes that many voters, and they are really freaking out that, hey, that many voters can go ahead and overthrow all their people so they can make sure that a Trump party does not form. So you ask yourself, turn around and look around and say, where did all the Never-Trumpers go? All the Never-Trumpers are sitting there saying, hey, Trump signed a Japan deal. Let's do a huge celebration. Let's do a little fan art of Trump signed a Japan deal. Trump signed the Japan deal. He signed it. Well, then who wrote it? Who wrote the Japan deal if he signed it? In Congress, it usually goes when Trump signs something. That means Congress did the deal, right? Isn't that how it works? Presidents sign bills that Congress makes. And so interesting wording, isn't it? GOP chairwoman, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, all these people who went on vacation and who are retweeting this, who are on vacation all summer, while Donald J. Trump was at the G7 and then was at UNGA, the UN General Assembly. And at those two meetings, a long meeting at the G7, is where he hammered out this deal. Were any of you there? Did any of the GOP attend the G7? Did any of you attend UNGA? It was right there in New York. No, you were couch surfing. You were couch surfing on vacation again, doing nothing but raising funds off of Trump's name. He does a lot. You all retweet it, and then you say, give us money. But you do absolutely nothing but take the bills that the United Nations gives you, and then you push those. But when he gives you the bills that make this nation richer and stronger and wealthier, you say, no, thank you. And if any one of you actually says, yes, thank you, Gosh, gee, isn't it interesting? You all shun them. You Nevertrumpers, you. It is amazing. So I guess now that I'm at the end of my walk, my point in all of this is saying, why don't you start paying attention to the fact that the GOP Nevertrumpers always only push economy numbers, just like the Nazis in Germany did. It's always economy. You know, it's Wall Street that pushed Hitler up. And isn't it interesting that the factories that are making all of this money, from BMW to Volkswagen to the corn crop people, all of those companies were the exact same cartels, exact same companies, BASF to Bayer, all of the same ones that profited in Nazi Germany. They're the same ones that made up World War I, that the Treaty of Versailles were written to actually break up those chemical corporations and those oil corporations in Iran. Ever notice that Iran and Germany were linked up in World War I, linked up in World War II, and gosh darn it, look at that, they're linked up again. Isn't it interesting when Newt Gingrich just says, hey, Europe and Germany are united, or Europe and Iran are united. You know, these European countries don't want to let go. He doesn't say German companies. Did you notice that? He doesn't say AB InBev. He doesn't say BASF. He doesn't mention the actual names of companies. Did anyone actually notice that Newt Gingrich doesn't? He just says, oh, they're transnational companies. And now, on this glorious day, I would like to give you some information. When I woke up last night, I had a really bad day yesterday, a really, really horrible episode. But when I woke up to a Reuters story that said, hey, the global economy took a knock. And it said German industries went down. And I was like, isn't it interesting? When the global economy took a knock, it was German industries that went down. That's because Agenda 21, which said it's promoting globalism, only promoted one type of globalism, the already international German industrial complex called IG Farben. Long, strong, and wide, Krupp Steel, BMW, Volkswagen, everyone who had concentration camps and profited during those days were just like, hey, we can go ahead and do this across the world if we just unite at the United Nations. And our congressman said, okay, we'll sign up. And this year and next year, this November and next year is our chance to end it. It's our chance to end it. We already have people in Congress just waiting there to have partners to knock them over. Because the only people you see are the people that are left, and they're dying. They're scared as heck that you're going to find out that Jim Jordan voted against Donald Trump. They're scared as heck to have you find out that Rand Paul actually voted against Trump more than Senator Feinstein. This nation is so pro-Trump, you have no idea. That's why all the clothing markets are turning flag, red, white, and blue. All the things they're selling to kids for rap concerts are Made in America festivals. They are pumping red, white, and blue everywhere because that's the market today, kids. That's the market today. There's nothing to be scared of. The only thing to be scared of is if we don't replace this GOP and stop donating and start looking for people around you. Now, one last thing I'd like to say is this. I told the people that want to run, be smart because the GOP is knocking people out early. If you say that you intend to run early, they're going to knock you out. Don't say you intend to run until a day or two early. Like, go ahead and get to know the town and get to know the people that are local in town, get to know the people who are running, like get to know all the store owners, get to know their stores, shop in their stores a little bit, go around to their stores, get to know their, shake their hand, meet their eye, have them know your name and stuff, drop by and just see how they're doing and just see, you know, like just say you're new to town or whatever, you work in town or stuff like that, or you're trying to get out, you're trying to shop locally. Just be like, I've been learning about the global economy and I really want to shop locally. I've just been learning about legislation, I really want to shop locally. And just start getting to know them, maybe talk to them every once in a while and get to know them or whatever and stuff like that, and just get to know them. And then when it finally comes time and when you run or whatever, and then after the filing date and you file, then you can go into them and be like, you know, I'm running, if you're interested, I'd love to tell you about my plans or whatever. Like, these are the bills that I really want to vote for. Like, these are the bills that they voted against. They voted against this bill and bit. See, I really love these bills, but they voted against them. Like, our senator voted against them. So I'd really like to vote for them and explain the bills to them and just say, these are the bills that they voted against and these are the bills I'd like to vote for. Does that make sense? And then just be like, these are their backers and I don't have any backers. Like, I'm going to run without backers and I really, you know, love your support, but it's no pressure or whatever. And just get to know the town or whatever. And people like people they know in person. And they especially like to know the bills. They want to know what you're going to do for them. They don't want to know about you. They want to know what you're going to do you for them, and they want to know you're a real person. So I'm telling people to announce late, and from knowing the GOP, they'll probably move around the actual deadline, so keep checking on that deadline or whatever. They probably have tricks up their sleeves. But you need to be a little bit more smart this time. Last time we just kind of went in, but they weren't ready for us either last time. But this time we're going to clean out the DNC and the GOP, because remember, what's happening is that the DNC, people are just jaded with it too, but in places like New York, right? There are places like New York and even places in Pennsylvania where there are no GOP people running, like everyone's DNC. You'll even say with that, gosh, I keep thinking someone was home. It's not, it's just all the acorns falling. So, but there's like even that really amazing, uh-oh, my phone's dying. Okay, there's a really amazing sheriff, and he runs DNC, even though he's really conservative, but that's because he's in a town that's all DNC. So also run DNC. If you're in a town that's super, super DNC, run DNC. That's fine. Run where you need to run in order to clean it out. Does that make sense? So you can run Trump bills. You can run Trump legislation. Like, you can run his legislation's all pro-Constitution. Remember, pro-rights, pro-land rights, you know, pro-freedom of speech rights. Like, we're looking into his actual executive orders and learning that they're all just common sense, right? Just like, it's just none of it's funny business. It's just really just basic, give people their rights, if that makes sense. Like, your rights, and just take rights, and that's it. It's really like no muss, no fuss. So anyway, I love you guys so much. It's good to be walking with you again. Better go rest. It's been a really rough month. Ugh, Freedom Week must have kicked my butt more than I thought. All right, I love you. Bye. Oh, here are videos. And then donate down below and subscribe here if you want to stay updated, because I'm not always able to post on Twitter and stuff like that. But it should remind you, hopefully. Anyway, but it's really good to see you guys again, and donate down below. And if you're new, I'm so glad to have you. And please share this. Please share this and get the news out, because I'm not really able to push and share. I'm not on Facebook or anything like that. So if you could just push this and share this and get the word out, I could really appreciate it, because especially share it on Trump's feed in the MAGA community. If you could really get this out there and post this, because people just don't know that it's still Nevertrump out there, that they're all voting against the bills. Like, if you look up their actual voting records and not what they say, it's terrifying, right? So I did some videos last year in 2018 on their actual voting record, and it was terrifying. I found like 2 people that actually voted anywhere near what their promises were to the American people, what they said they would actually do. There's what they say they're going to do, and then there's how they vote, and they're like polar opposites, right? All right, I love you guys so much. Bye.